Revealed, millionaire transformed by hidden love for the poor girl sleeping at a bus stop. Daniel Thompson, the golden boy of Thompson Enterprises, was known for his sharp mind. A mere whisper could spark a multi-million-dollar idea. Yet, as he sped through the moonlit streets of his small Midwestern town in a sleek black Audi, a strange sensation clawed at his gut, pulling him toward a bus stop flickering under the harsh, disapproving glare of a street lamp. There, wrapped in a tattered blanket, lay a girl, a young artist with worn hands and a spirit that seemed juxtaposed against the coldness surrounding her. Each boardroom meeting echoed with hollow applause for Daniel's business triumphs, but there was an emptiness gnawing deeper than the applause could fill. He needed validation, recognition, the weight of millionaire status pressed against his chest like an anchor. He approached the girl, Emma, with hesitant steps, unsure whether to extend a hand or to retreat into the comfortable void he had cultivated. "Why are you out here?" he found himself asking, words spilling out before he could stop them. Her response, a laugh that danced like music, was infectious, pulling him in despite reason's warnings. Their exchanges ignited neglected sparks of passion within him. He was a millionaire, a product of privilege, yet he felt more alive sitting on the curb with Emma than in the gleaming boardrooms with executives who patted his back for deals closed and profits surged. Their conversation shifted his perspective. Her sketches, resplendent with color, illuminated the shadows of his wealth-stricken life. But lurking behind every laugh was the suffocating reality of his upbringing, his family's expectations looming like dark clouds. Should he embrace this unrefined love that twisted his heart into knots, or must he remain atop the pedestal of success they built for him? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Churning within him was a tempest of doubt and fear. His family, affluent and ornate, saw Emma as a mere distraction, a poor girl threatening to unravel their meticulously crafted image. They urged him to pursue women from their elite circle, to marry someone who could bolster their reputation, a legacy he had never truly desired. The pressure pounded in his temples, reaching a breaking point. Honoring his lineage meant demanding sacrifices only he could feel. The love blossoming for Emma felt like desperate rebellion, yet it was a craving as intense as his need for approval. In a moment charged with impending dread, he opened a family album, seeking solace only to stumble upon a faded photograph revealing a connection he never could have imagined. A shared lineage between his family and Emma's that twisted the very notion of status and social worth. Realization struck harder than a storm, leaving him breathless. If this was true, then how could he possibly uphold the values instilled in him when they were suddenly built on shifting sands? Caught in a maelstrom of expectation and the most tender love he'd ever known, Daniel had never felt more lost. Standing at the precipice of defining his identity and deciding what success truly meant, the clock ticked mercilessly, revealing a path steeped in turmoil and heartache. He had to choose: abandon the life his family crafted for him or risk everything chasing a love demanding that he confront the very essence of himself. Daniel's heart raced as conflicting emotions surged within him, each one battling for dominance. The image of Emma, her laughter still echoing in his ears, felt like a beacon amidst the chaos of his upbringing. This emerging love was raw and untamed, yet imbued with a clarity he hadn't realized was lacking in his well-structured life. He stared at the photograph, reality crashing over him like waves against unyielding cliffs. How could he have been so blind? This revelation threatened to divide his world into fragments. His family's expectations, and the undeniable urge to pursue a path that felt authentically his own. As he walked around the cluttered living room, memories swirled around him like leaves in a whirlwind, ushering in memories of extravagant displays and polished facades. He had been groomed to wear a mask that imposed order on chaos, yet every interaction with Emma stripped those layers away, until only the vulnerable version of himself remained. In that moment of solitude, Daniel confronted a growing awareness. The idea that genuine connection was far more valuable than the hollow accolades of his business life. His professional successes, once a source of pride, now seemed quaint juxtaposed against the allure of honest love and self-discovery. The thought of embracing Emma, of rejecting the life that felt more like a gilded cage than a home, became a bubbling urgency in his chest. As dawn broke, bathing the room in a soft glow, he found himself seated at his desk, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Last night's document detailing his family's business strategy suddenly felt stale, a mere reflection of a life he was desperate to escape. Instead, he began to type feverishly about concepts that had sparked during their conversations, ways to innovate and inspire others with art and commerce intertwined. His thoughts raced faster than his fingers could keep up. Each line built upon the last, shifting from profit margins to opportunities for real change. The irony wasn't lost on him. Here he was, a millionaire yearning to build something that transcended mere wealth, wishing to honor a legacy that didn't hinge on his family's reputation. Every word felt like a step toward freedom. Yet, it also evoked a troubling thought. Would the new structures he envisioned with Emma be enough to break free from the shadows of his lineage? Undercurrents of anxiety resurfaced as he considered how he would present this to his family. Would they accept his revelations? Would his father look upon him with disdain? The notion of backlash was enough to make him pause. Nevertheless, this growing conviction felt like a clear resolve within him. As the sun rose higher, illuminating his workspace, he made a decision. Daniel would meet with Emma again that evening, but this time, their interactions wouldn't just be about sharing art. He would share his dreams, revealing his plans to recast his life narrative beyond what his family had dictated. His determination solidified like steel. He would construct a new existence that blended his passion for business and art, aiming for a profound social impact. It was risky, but it palpable. It was life. As he reached toward his phone, there was a sense of urgency mounting within him, a hunger not merely to act but to create a life that breathed authenticity. Daniel glanced out of the window, and for the first time the horizon didn't feel confining, but wide open. What he didn't know was that Emma harbored secrets of her own, secrets that, once revealed, could change everything he thought he knew about love, family, and his very identity. With the power of possibility igniting his spirit, Daniel pondered how he could confront not only his external world, but also the tides of inheritance tugging hard at him. The time had come to face the beliefs his family upheld and reforge his identity within the melting pot of love and ambition. The hours of anticipation weighed heavily on Daniel as he prepared to meet Emma again. Each moment dripped with a sense of urgency, swirling thoughts buzzing in his mind, clamoring for attention like insistent children. What if she didn't feel the same way about this vision? What if his ambitions shattered the fragile connection they had forged? He paced the polished wooden floors, every step resonating with the rhythm of his racing heart. He arrived at the cafe early, seeking solace in the warm atmosphere before she arrived. The chatter of other patrons blurred into a comforting hum, but Daniel couldn't shake the tightening in his stomach. He ordered a black coffee, no sugar, a stark contrast to the sweet fantasy he had spun around the idea of their future. Staring into the dark liquid, he pondered the stark differences between his life and hers. Two parallel tracks that had converged unexpectedly despite the chasm of status that separated them. Suddenly, he recalled Emma's passion for her art, how she insisted that every piece was infused with emotion and meaning. Could he harness that same fervor? The idea struck him. What if he turned his venture into a platform to empower aspiring artists from the communities he had all but overlooked? His brainstorm erupted on napkins as he jotted down sketches of plans, community workshops where art met entrepreneurship, scholarships, mentorship programs. His dreams had teeth now, ready to bite into the very fabric of his family's expectations. As the flutter of the cafe door sent a wisp of cool air through the warm space, Daniel's heart leaped. Emma was here. She strode in, radiating a lightness he had long craved. The moment their eyes locked, the rest of the world faded into the background, leaving only the two of them. He welcomed her with a bright smile, and they settled into the cozy corner, teeming with unspoken electricity. They exchanged pleasantries, but Daniel could feel the tension knotting in his stomach worsening. He was climbing a mountain, and every word he said now seemed decisive. As they chatted about lesser topics, he could hardly contain the excitement of revealing his bigger dreams. But how to articulate the transformation he envisioned without sounding presumptuous? Would she understand the urgency that burned in him? After a few sips of coffee, he seized an opportunity, his voice steady but laced with vulnerability. "Emma, you know how you inspire me with your art?" The words spilled out like an irresistible tide. "What if there was a way for me to use my resources to help people like you, to make a real difference in the art world?" The moment hung in the air, pregnant with potential. Her eyes widened, reflective of the hope and fear swirling inside him. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice soft, almost quaking as if she sensed the gravity beneath his proposals. Daniel explained his vision, each word unveiling layers of ambition he had kept hidden even from himself. He could see the flame of interest flicker within her, igniting sparks of hope as he unfolded the plans. Imagine a place where art isn't encumbered by wealth but rather flourishing through passion and purpose. Funding for living artists, spaces for exhibitions, workshops that blend creativity and entrepreneurship. As he spoke, he felt himself unshackled from the expectations hanging over him. The more he revealed, the more liberated he became, as if each vision solidified the sense that he was, for the first time, alive in creating a legacy of his own. But just as she leaned in close, the resolve in her gaze shifted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Daniel, that sounds incredible, but there's something I need to tell you. Something about my past. It's not just art that shapes who we are." Before she could delve deeper, Daniel's phone buzzed violently against the table, cutting through the heavy air. It was a message from his father, short and terse, typical of their strained interactions. "We need to discuss business soon. You're needed." The reminder of his obligations slammed into him like an unwanted intrusion. He clenched his jaw, his heart racing. Emma's eyes flickered with concern. The moment had almost arrived, but he couldn't ignore the reality closing in around him. Would he return to his father for another meeting that would drown him in inherited duties? Or would he shake off the chains and follow this new path, whatever secrets lay ahead with Emma? "Let me guess," she said, arching an eyebrow, breaking him from his spiraling thoughts. "Family business calling?" He nodded, conflicted, a storm of uncertainty brewing beneath the surface. But he also sensed that this conversation was only the beginning, of truths to unfold, of ambitions to forge, and the delicate balance he would have to achieve between his past and this burgeoning future. The choice loomed large before him, and suddenly Daniel realized he was at a crossroads, ready to confront not just the resistance from his family, but also the mysteries that Emma harbored. What truth lay waiting in the shadows? As the door swung open behind him, fresh hopes and fears swept in on the cool wind, perhaps holding answers he had yet to grapple with. The air between Daniel and Emma thickened with unspoken questions, each of them suspended in that charged moment. He wrestled with the tumult of his thoughts, acutely aware of the text from his father still buzzing ominously in his pocket. The weight of familial expectations threatened to engulf him, yet the desire to explore the path unfolding before him was intoxicating. "Do you ever feel trapped by what others expect from you?" he asked, barely recognizing the vulnerability in his own voice. He leaned forward, his hands clasped tightly in front of him, seeking a connection grounded in shared struggles. Emma's brow furrowed as she considered his question. "Every day," she replied, her voice steady. "Creating art is freeing, but it can also feel like a cage when it's not enough. I've always wanted my work to resonate, to be something more than just pretty pictures. But sometimes I feel like I'm fighting against an invisible wall." Her admission was a mirror reflecting his own battle against an unyielding reality, and he felt an unfamiliar kinship. Here was someone who understood the pressure of expectation, who dared to dream amid the restrictions imposed by society and circumstance. "What if we could tear down that wall?" he stated, the fervor bubbling up again. "What if we created a space where artists could break free? where passion and purpose could interlace with resources to bring something beautiful into the world. The passion in his words sparked something in her eyes. "You truly believe that can happen?" Emma asked, her skepticism tempered by curiosity. Daniel nodded emphatically, feeling the momentum build. He envisioned workshops where art became accessible to all and artists were no longer confined by material constraints. Each idea fed his growing excitement, and he felt untethered from the expectations that had held him hostage for so long. They spent the next hour sketching out ideas, Emma's enthusiasm igniting new thoughts in Daniel. He traced plans for community engagement through art, exhibitions not just as showcases of talent but as platforms for stories waiting to be told, as avenues for voices to be heard. The gears of his mind shifted rapidly, and it felt as if they were building this vision together, bricks of creativity fusing under the heat of their collective ambition. But as ideas flowed between them, the specter of his father loomed larger, gnawing at the edges of his thoughts. He couldn't shake the feeling that old ties would drag him back into a life dictated by duty rather than desire. The ping of his phone interrupted his reverie again, a stark reminder of his family's expectations that gnawed at the freedom he craved. "Daniel?" Emma's voice broke into his spiral of uncertainty, gentle yet piercing through the fog. He looked up to find her examining him closely, and there was something more in her eyes, a quiet determination. "What do you want? I mean, really want?" It was a question that detonated within him. He stuttered over words of ambition and duty, but at the core of it lay a yearning he hadn't fully recognized until now. An urgency not just for his own growth, but for a chance to champion others like Emma, to tear down the boundaries that chained both her artistry and his ambitions. His heart raced as he pondered his answer. Could he articulate the self he had been discovering, the man who wasn't defined by the family legacy, but rather by a commitment to something greater? Yet, what would that mean for the relationship he was forging with Emma? Would declaring this vision mean he had to fully accept his independence no matter the cost? I want to be more than what my father expects of me," he finally uttered, his voice shaky but resolute. "I want to forge a different path, one that can uplift others." Just then, as a charged silence enveloped them, a knock on the cafe door startled both of them, pulling them back into the reality that thrummed outside. An unfamiliar figure stood at the entrance, and as they turned, Daniel hesitated. This moment could change everything. A shift in their budding relationship, an unforeseen challenge or opportunity that could refine or rewrite the course of their ambitions. What did this unexpected visitor want? And how would they impact Daniel's struggle to break free? Daniel's heartbeat quickened as he caught sight of the figure at the door. A tall man in a tailored suit, sharp and imposing. Yet there was an underlying urgency to his demeanor that made Daniel's instincts flare. The cafe, once a cocoon of possibility for dreams and aspirations, felt suddenly claustrophobic. The weight of expectancy shifted. Everything outside the cafe swirled and collapsed into focus on the man who dared to breach their sanctuary. "Can I help you?" he asked, unable to mask the edge in his voice. The man offered a practiced smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm looking for Daniel Carter," he said, glancing between Daniel and Emma. "We need to talk." Emma shifted uncomfortably beside him, her previous confidence replaced by uncertainty. Uncertainty was something Daniel desperately wanted to push against, to move beyond. He felt as though the flickering light of inspiration they'd shared just moments ago dimmed with the man's intrusion. His desire to chart a new course suddenly felt precarious, teetering on the precipice of old expectations. "I'm Daniel," he said, standing a bit taller, trying to wield a semblance of authority despite the tremor in his gut. "Good. I'm William Fincher," the man introduced himself, extending a firm hand that Daniel accepted with reluctance. "I represent your father's interests. He asked me to track you down." If Daniel thought the air was thick before, it now felt as though he was suffocating. He glanced at Emma, who looked torn between curiosity and concern. Would this confrontation scuttle their ideas, their burgeoning connection? "Does he want me to come home?" Daniel asked, already knowing the answer. His voice was steady, but the question hung in the air, a desperate challenge to finally confront his father's expectations. "Not exactly," Fincher replied, leaning in slightly, his tone lowering. "He wants to offer you a position at the firm. It's an opportunity to step away from your creative pursuits and take on something with real weight." Weight. The word felt like a lead ball dropped into his stomach. The firm was a fortress of rules, uniformity, and expectation. Everything he yearned to escape. "I'm not interested in a position at the firm," Daniel asserted, the words tasting bitter yet liberating. "I'm focused on something different now." Fincher's expression hardened. "You don't understand the value of what he's offering. You'll have resources, a platform. I don't want to build my life based on what my father wants," Daniel interrupted, anger and fear coiling inside him. "I'm tired of being what he expects me to be." The realization hit him. He was standing firm for the first time against more than just his father's expectations. This was about crafting an identity for himself and acting on it. A transformative step that both frightened and exhilarated him. Having asserted his boundary, Daniel turned toward Emma, seeking her support. To his relief, she was watching him with a mixture of admiration and encouragement. This made him reckless with ambition. "I have my own dreams now. I want to help artists find their voice just like I'm trying to find mine," he continued, feeling his resolve solidifying within him, affirming that he had chosen the right path. Fincher shook his head slowly, his eyes narrowing. "You think you can just turn down a chance like this? You're throwing away your future." "Maybe I don't want to follow the path that has been laid out for me," Daniel shot back. The challenge in his voice resonated with the confidence he had just begun to foster. The man's presence became less intimidating with each word that spilled from his lips. Fincher let out a sigh, and Daniel knew it was not just exasperation. It was the sound of an opportunity slipping away. "This isn't just about you. You have responsibilities. Think about what you're doing." The words echoed in Daniel's mind, reawakening the internal struggle he'd just begun to dismantle. Was he being irresponsible, reckless in pursuing this vision? Yet another wave of determination washed over him. There was always the possibility of drowning in familiar expectations, but he chose to breathe anew. "Thank you for your concern, but my decision is final," Daniel declared, standing even taller. Attention filled the space as Fincher glared before stepping back. Daniel's heart raced, not solely from the confrontation, but from the realization of what he had just done. He had stood tall, resisted pressure, and recognized the value of his own voice. As Fincher turned and strode out of the cafe with the weight of disappointment, a spark ignited within Daniel. The cafe door swung closed behind him, sealing off not only the visitor but the lingering doubts of the past. "Wow, that was intense," Emma whispered when they were alone again, her eyes sparkling with possibility. "I know what I want now," Daniel said, his voice steady and grounded, "but I have a lot of work ahead. This is just the beginning." "What's next then?" Emma probed, her interest piqued again, shifting the mood back toward inspiration. Daniel thought about that for a moment, feeling the excitement of uncharted territory ahead. "I need to find a way to create that space we talked about, a space where we can share our stories, our art, everything." But beneath the thrill was uncertainty. What would it take, and could he have enough resolve to see it through? As he gathered his thoughts, he felt an urge to set tangible goals, prompting a new question to pulse through his mind. Would anyone else stand by him as he ventured forth to forge this new path? Just as he began to reflect on that, the cafe door swung open again. Another figure stepped inside, this time an older woman with an air of familiarity. Daniel froze, a chill creeping down his spine. What could this new visitor bring? Was it an unexpected ally or yet another voice of doubt in his unfolding journey? Daniel could barely focus as the woman approached. Each measured step toward him felt like a haunting reminder of the life he was attempting to escape. Her silver hair was braided elegantly, and her vibrant blue dress contrasted starkly with the murky cafe ambiance. He almost felt an instant connection, but a defensive wall quickly sprang up in response. "Daniel," she said, her voice a gentle ripple that momentarily quelled his unease. "I've been looking for you. Who are you?" he managed, his curiosity edging out his apprehension. There was something in her eyes, a depth of understanding that felt both foreign and inviting. "I'm Marianne. I knew your mother before." She paused, the unspoken words hanging heavily between them. Before she passed. The mention of his mother was like a jolt to Daniel's already frayed state of mind. He was not prepared to open that door. "What do you want?" "I want to help you," she replied, her expression softening. "I know your father reappraised his priorities after her death, but you've been spared from the constraints he imposes on you." Daniel's solid ground tilted again. A part of him longed for a connection to his mother, a phantom echo of affection he felt so painfully absent. Yet the other part of him resisted anything resembling familial expectation. "You want me to take a job at his firm?" he asked, his voice laced with skepticism. Marianne shook her head. "No, not at all. I don't think that's what any of us want for you. I've seen what it does to those who conform. What I truly think is that you have a purpose beyond what you've been taught. Your creativity, your passions, they are your gifts." Her words penetrated deeper than he anticipated. He found himself questioning whether he had merely glossed over the possibilities that existed outside his father's shadow. Yet, how could he trust her? She was an unknown variable in this already complex equation of his life. "I need to create something genuine," Daniel said, his voice rising slightly with conviction. "I want to build something meaningful, not just follow someone else's blueprint." "I admire that," she replied, "but you can't do it alone. The journey is as significant as the destination. You'll need support, guidance, and a community willing to share in the risks and rewards of pursuing passion." Daniel felt a flicker of hope, mixed with hesitation. How could he build a community when he barely trusted himself? And this woman, who had emerged out of nowhere, was she offering merely platitudes or genuine wisdom? Comedy and tragedy wrapped tightly around his goals, mocking him from unseen corners. "What gives you confidence that I am worth backing?" he challenged, answering the tight coil of uncertainty in his chest. "Because I've seen people transform," she asserted. "I've seen the magic that happens when they find their authentic voices and allow themselves to connect with others. You have it in you, Daniel, and that is something your father will never understand." The stakes were impossibly high, yet with each passing moment things felt less cluttered. A million questions fluttered through his mind, but one stood out. How would he take that leap of faith? "I can't carry the baggage of expectations and still create my own path," he murmured mostly to himself. "Then let it go," Marianne instructed gently. "You have the power to redefine your reality. Start now." Her words locked onto his desire, echoing like a battle cry that surged through his veins. The possibility of what could unfold was intoxicating, but doubt lingered at the fringes, gnawing on his resolve. "I'll consider what you've said," he replied finally, measuring his response. "But I need time." "Of course," she acknowledged, her smile reaffirming. "Just don't wait too long. Opportunities are as fleeting as they are abundant." As she turned to leave, Daniel felt a rush of conflicting emotions. Was he prepared to step forward into the unknown? In a world full of expectations, facing his future with a heart willing to embrace uncertainty was a terrifying prospect. His thoughts began to crystallize. This might just be the pivot point he had been yearning for. The door swung open behind her, but this time it was not just a gust of wind that swept through. Within that air was the scent of fresh possibility, urging him to seize it. He could do this. No matter how daunting it felt, he would find the courage to pursue his vision. He just needed clarity. As the warmth of the cafe clashed with the tightening knot in his stomach, Daniel's mind began racing with ideas. He had to start somewhere. And maybe, just maybe, Marianne's entrance would be the catalyst for change. But as he mentally plotted his opening moves, the door opened once more. A towering man entered this time, and the familiar aura of authority surrounded him. Was it Fincher again? or someone with even more influence in the tangled sphere of his life? Nerves kicked in, pushing against his newfound resolve as uncertainty laced his thoughts. Whatever awaited him next loomed like a shadow ready to pounce. The towering man moved through the cafe with an air of unmistakable certainty, his shoulders squared and gait purposeful. As he neared Daniel, the very fabric of the cafe's ambiance shifted, charged by an electric tension that sent Daniel's pulse racing. This was no casual encounter. The man carried an expectation, a gravitas that reminded Daniel of his father. "Daniel," the man stated, his voice deep and resonant, each syllable weighted by authority. "I was hoping to speak with you." Even as adrenaline surged through Daniel, a wave of recognition washed over him. It was Eric Fincher, a close associate of his father, known for his ruthless success in the corporate world and his unwavering loyalty to Daniel's family. Daniel braced himself. This was the last conversation he wanted to have. "What can I do for you?" he asked. The challenge laced in his tone a thin veneer over the fear clawing at his insides. Fincher smirked slightly, his confidence undeterred by Daniel's defensive posture. "Your father has asked me to keep an eye on you. He's concerned about your choices, or rather, your lack thereof." A bitterness flooded Daniel's mouth. Was this man here to drag him back into the life he wanted to escape? This suggested presence hung like an albatross around his neck. "I have my own path." "Absolutely." Fincher nodded, amusement dancing in his eyes. "But your path could lead you back to the family business, where you could really make a difference. What your father wants is for you to see the potential within you, not throw it away on fleeting dreams." "Is that what he's told you? That I'm throwing anything away?" Daniel's voice rose, frustration bubbling to the surface. "I'm tired of being pushed into someone else's idea of success. I need to define what that means for me." "And you think you can do that?" Fincher inquired, his tone shifting from condescension to legitimate curiosity. "With no support system? No financial backing? Creativity needs more than just an idea. It needs resources." For a moment Daniel's chest tightened painfully. Fincher wasn't wrong. He had come to the instant realization that the thought of stepping into the world of business without established resources was daunting at best, crippling at worst. But that couldn't be all there was to life. He glanced back toward the door Marianne had exited, her encouraging words still echoing in his mind. It was time to challenge the confines of expectation, yet self-doubt loomed large. "Resources can be found," Daniel replied finally, his voice steadier now. "If I'm going to create something meaningful, it needs to come from a place of authenticity, not under the shadow of family obligations." Fincher studied him for a prolonged moment, his sharp eyes narrowing as if calculating their next move in an intricate chess game. "I admire your determination," he said slowly. "But I can assure you that the financial support you seek will be far easier to acquire if you're willing to explore your father's world." Daniel felt the weight of Fincher's words press down on him. The prospect of security was tempting, yet painfully contradictory to everything Marianne had ignited within him. The idea of returning to the family business felt like shackling himself to a life not lived on his terms. "Have you ever considered the real cost of a leap into the unknown?" Fincher added, leaning closer as if drawing Daniel into a conspiratorial fold. "If you fail without a safety net, it won't just be your aspirations on the line. It could be your future. Think wisely before you dismiss this opportunity." A strategy was forming in Daniel's mind, taking shape against the backdrop of the flickering cafe lights. Was there a way to edge closer to his dreams while keeping financial security in sight? "Can you give me time?" Daniel asked, feeling a shift in his mentality. Instead of leaning on either side's comfort, he would carve out his own niche. "I need to explore my options, all of them." Fincher's eyes sparkled with intrigue. "Very well. But I will keep my eyes on you. Don't disappoint." As he walked away, a rush of clarity filled Daniel. There had to be a way to amalgamate the lessons he'd learned with repeated failures and the financial backing that would afford him the opportunity to explore his passions without being suffocated by expectations. The weight of what he was about to undertake pressed heavily on him, but he felt a growing determination stir within, a belief that he could leverage not just one path, but the potential of multiple avenues to get where he wanted to go. But as his thoughts settled, an unexpected figure slipped into the cafe. A young woman barely older than a teenager, her clothes tattered and eyes weary, caught his gaze. What was her story? Would his creativity find a voice in giving her a platform? As he contemplated the intersection of his ambitions and the world around him, the tension began to coil back into his mind. What if this stranger held secrets capable of unlocking something within him he had yet to discover? Daniel's thoughts still lingered on Fincher's words as he observed the young woman in the cafe. Her dirty sneakers shuffled slightly as she found a seat in the corner, her weary frame trembling slightly from the chill of the room. His instincts about her were undeniable. There was something poignant about her presence that drew him in. In the cluttered atmosphere of ambition and expectation, she stood out as a reminder of the stark realities buzzing quietly around him. As she settled, Daniel leaned slightly forward, curiosity morphing into concern. What circumstances had led her here? He could feel the soft tug of empathy, a rising tide against the rocky shores of his own internal battle. Here he was, grappling with the weight of generational expectations while someone else was fighting to find her place in a world that seemed indifferent. He recalled Marianne's encouragement, how she had illuminated paths he'd been too afraid to explore. "You have the power to make a difference," she had said. Could this be one way he could channel his aspirations? Perhaps creative expression could extend beyond his immediate desires. Maybe it could serve as a platform for others too. The idea marinated in his mind, blending with the unease he felt about his own ambitions. With shaky resolve, he stood and approached the girl. The closer he got, the more he noticed the shadows beneath her eyes, and the wary glance she shot his way. "Hey," he started, his voice softer than he intended, surfacing through the noise of the cafe. "Is everything all right?" She looked up, surprise flickering in her eyes, before her face hardened, walling off her vulnerability. "I'm fine," she replied curtly. "Do you mind if I join you?" he asked, gesturing to the empty chair before her. He couldn't help but notice the slight way her body tensed at the intrusion. "I promise I won't bite." Her guarded expression didn't change, but she nodded fractionally, and he took the seat. "Why are you here?" she shot back, suspicion lurking under her words, as if expecting him to deliver platitudes or judgment. "I was just curious," he admitted, wanting to break through the layers of defensiveness. "You look like you might have a story worth sharing." Her gaze softened just a fraction. He caught the flicker of something genuine there. "Stories don't matter to people like you," she muttered. "They only care about success and money." The sharpness of her retort stung, but it served as a reminder of the very battle he was trying to escape. He could feel cracks forming in her armor, a chance to connect further. "I'm trying to figure out what success means to me," he confessed, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. "It feels unreal sometimes, like a weight I don't want anymore." She studied him, disbelief crossing her features. "And what do you think you can do about it? Dream bigger?" "I want to create something," he replied, forging on, resolute. "I've been thinking about a project, something that gives others a voice. That's led to, well, exploring my options." For the first time, her interest piqued in a tangible way. "Like what? You think you can help people just by talking about it?" "Perhaps," he shrugged, a hint of uncertainty creeping into his voice. "But this feels different. I want to build something that connects experiences, makes people feel seen." For a fleeting moment, I could see a glimmer of hope spark in her eyes. "And you think I'm going to help you do that?" "Why not?" he responded, his determination solidifying. "You have a story. You clearly know things I don't, living in a different world, one I want to understand." Her expression shifted. Skepticism remained, but now it was mingled with a spark of curiosity. "What's in it for you?" Daniel leaned in, heart pounding, knowing he was approaching the threshold of something significant. "The chance to redefine success," Not just for me, but for others like you. I want to explore what could happen if I let creativity lead the way. With your help, we could create something meaningful." The conversation hung in the air between them like an uncharted territory, filled with possibilities. As she mulled it over, Daniel's insides buzzed with a mix of anticipation and uncertainty. What awaited him at the brink of this venture? Would embracing this connection lead him closer to the voice he sought, or push him deeper into the unknown? The weight of the decision built a swell of excitement. As her gaze softened, he realized they stood on the edge of a collaboration that could ignite not just his aspirations, but also light a spark in a life he had yet to discover fully. But could he bear the responsibility that came with it? Would he have the strength to face the challenges that would inevitably arise from blending their worlds? Daniel waited, the air heavy with shared uncertainty. The young woman's expression flickered like a flame in the wind, teetering between apprehension and intrigue. He felt the gravity of the moment. This conversation was more than casual banter. This was a crossroads for both of them. "I guess it depends on what you want to accomplish," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "What I want," he felt the words echoing in his mind, "is to connect, to break through these walls we build around ourselves." The realization surged inside him, igniting a new determination. "I want to transform my understanding of success. It can't just be a personal milestone, it has to include the stories of those who feel overlooked." A narrow smile cracked her guarded demeanor, but it disappeared as quickly as it had come. "And you think I have the key to that?" "Absolutely," he replied with sincerity. "You see the world differently than I do. Your experiences hold value that I want to learn from, and I'm willing to listen." The shift in their dynamic stirred something deep within Daniel. Until now, his values, shaped by familial expectations and the relentless pursuit of societal approval, had clouded his vision. Here was an opportunity to redefine what he envisioned for success, not as a solitary triumph but as a collective exploration of resilience and creativity. "I've been a writer." Her admission hung in the air, unexpected but not unwelcome. "Or at least I used to be. I lost confidence. Or maybe I just lost the drive to write for anyone but myself." Daniel leaned closer, urging her to continue. "What stopped you?" "Reality," she replied blandly. "The world isn't kind to dreamers. They expect results, not words." He considered her words an echo of his own fears. It was true. The weight of expectations had nearly crushed him during his academic career, mirroring the exact struggles she articulated. "But words have power," he urged. "They can inspire and connect. What if we collaborated? Maybe our stories can shine a light in the shadows." Her gaze flicked toward the window, lost in thought. "And what if no one cares? What if it makes things worse?" The apprehension in her voice reflected the very doubts that plagued him. Facing fears head-on would be transformative, but it also exposed them both to potential rejection. "We have to be willing to suffer for our truths," he responded, grounding himself in that belief. "For every story shared, there's an opportunity for connection." The tremor in her fingers halted mid-motion, suggesting she was weighing his proposition. He couldn't help but wonder if she felt the same pulse of possibility radiating between them, just as he did. Every moment they shared was a step closer to untangling their narratives, a genuine partnership ignited by mutual vulnerability. "I'll consider it," she finally said, locking eyes with him. "But I need to know you're serious about this. I can't just be a footnote in your story." Her demand was clear, spelling out the conditions of their agreement before it even officially began. "I have no intentions of sidelining you," he affirmed, buoyed by her resolve. "This venture is about empowerment, for both of us." Daniel's heart quickened as he sensed the walls around her beginning to crumble. They could build a bridge from their disparate worlds, and perhaps redefine success along the way. But there was still a looming fear of failure that twisted his stomach. Success wasn't solely about the end result. It was the emotional labor, the vulnerability that came with it that frightened him. What if they never bridged that gap? As the conversation began to recede into a comfortable silence, An unforeseen urgency filled the air. "When do we start?" he asked, the question cutting through the stillness. Her eyes narrowed slightly, the flickering candle of interest reigniting in her gaze. "You're serious?" "More than you know," Daniel replied, a newfound determination solidifying in his chest. "I guess the first step is figuring out what we want to say," she responded, a hint of a challenge in her voice. As they exchanged tentative smiles, Daniel knew they were on the cusp of something profound. Their collaboration could empower them both, but it was merely a beginning. What if, through the act of creation, they unearthed truths about themselves neither was ready to confront? What if the stories they told spiraled into something much larger than either of them had anticipated? Just as Daniel prepared to delve deeper into their plans, a sudden realization struck him. The real journey ahead was not just about crafting words or sharing experiences, but about confronting their demons and the responsibility that came with their newfound alliance. Would they succeed without losing more than they bargained for? As her eyes leveled with his, he could feel the tension build, the air thick with a sense of impending revelation. It was clear this connection had the potential to unravel everything they thought they knew about themselves. Would they be able to handle the truth that would inevitably surface? Daniel Thompson stood at a defining juncture of his life, no longer the golden boy of Thompson Enterprises, but a man ready to take a leap into the unknown. The lunch meeting with Emma had sparked an invigorating fire within him, one that bloomed into a vision that embraced personal authenticity while challenging the status quo. He committed himself to a new path, one where passion was more paramount than privilege. Over the next months, he channeled his energies into building a dynamic platform for aspiring artists, those who had been marginalized, overlooked, yet brimming with potential. Each step was both exhilarating and terrifying. He learned how to navigate the world without the safety net of his family's affluence, while championing creativity and facilitating communal storytelling through art. His hard work bore fruit as he launched Voices Unbound, a collective designed to elevate the narratives of artists from all walks of life. The opening exhibition attracted an eclectic mix of talent, where Emma's insightful artworks took center stage alongside voices that had long been silenced. The joy of witnessing the metamorphosis of both the art and the artists was deeply fulfilling, an achievement amplified by the many connections made along the way. As the months passed, Daniel received recognition from the local arts community, praised not merely for his business acumen, but for the sincerity driving his vision. Each accolade solidified his transformation, from a man tethered to familial expectations to an entrepreneur paving his own way. But personal achievement came entwined with growth. Every narrative shared within his space became a thread, weaving the community together. He discovered that authenticity flourished through vulnerability. Embracing his fears and uncertainties, he began to shed the identity shaped by his family's shadow. Instead, he became the architect of a legacy grounded in empowerment and creativity. In a moment of clarity one late afternoon, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Daniel reflected on how far he had come. He stood in the gallery that encapsulated his dreams, looking at the vibrant expressions that adorned the walls. Each stroke of paint was a testament to shared experiences, dreams realized, and hearts unburdened. The familiar tightening in his chest had nearly vanished, replaced by an unwavering confidence. It was during this celebration that Daniel's father, unexpectedly, walked through the door, his demeanor a complex amalgam of confusion and curiosity. Anticipating a confrontation, Daniel met his father there, everything he had learned about himself coiling tightly inside him as he prepared to face the man whose expectations had once loomed heavily over him. "Is this what you want?" his father inquired, steel in his voice yet laced with uncertainty, scanning the gallery filled with vibrant art and animated conversations. "Yes," Daniel replied, resolve igniting his voice. "This is me." In that brief exchange, the words held a power he had never imagined possible. The validation he had so desperately sought from his father no longer dictated his worth. Instead, Daniel had transformed into a man confident in his decisions, cradling the realization that his triumphs were born from chasing authenticity, not accolades. Later that evening, Emma found him gazing at the art, a mix of pride and reflection residing in his expression. She understood the journey they undertook together had been transformative for them both. It had reshaped not just their narratives but their selves. "Thank you for believing in this," he said softly, turning to her. "Together we've created more than just a space for art. We've created a community rooted in understanding and resilience. Thank you for being brave enough to pursue what you truly wanted," she replied, her enthusiasm echoing his. "We've both come a long way." The flicker of vulnerability and trust they shared in that moment sealed their partnership. Together, they had forged a path of continuing personal growth, a mirror reflecting the beauty that comes from intertwined journeys. Daniel Thompson stood in the gallery, no longer constrained by the golden chains of his legacy, but instead liberated by the stories lived and told. With Emma and the community by his side, he had not just transformed his career, he had ultimately redefined his life. Voices Unbound wasn't merely a project, it was a testament to the power of authenticity and creativity. As the gallery buzzed with energy, Daniel felt solid confidence pulsing through him, a quiet assurance that the true essence of success lay not in what was inherited, but in what was profoundly created. And so he knew he had conquered not just the expectations around him, but the very essence of himself. The past no longer stood as a shackle, but as a stepping stone toward a future filled with possibilities. This is the moment for you to subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like right now to feed the algorithm. We want to hear your reactions and theories about this powerful conclusion, so comment below. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative journey. Your support means the world.